I was 18 years old when I held that acceptance letter in my hands. State University, full acceptance. 4 years of everything I had dreamed about since middle school. My fingers trembled as I stared at the words, reading them over and over to make sure they were real. I bolted down the stairs, practically flying into the living room where my parents sat on the couch. I expected hugs, maybe tears of joy, at least a smile. Instead, my father looked up from his newspaper with cold eyes and said, "We need to talk about the cafe." My mother would not even meet my gaze. Something was wrong. Something was very, very wrong. Before we continue, I would love to know where you are watching from. Drop your city or country in the comments below. And if you have ever felt invisible in your own family, hit that like button and subscribe, because this story will hit different. Trust me, you will want to see how this unfolds. Let us dive in. My parents sat there on that worn brown sofa, their faces set in stone. I stood in the doorway, still clutching my acceptance letter, waiting for someone to say something that made sense. My father folded his newspaper slowly, deliberately, and placed it on the coffee table. My mother finally looked at me, but there was no warmth in her expression, just calculation. "Maxwell." My father began, his voice flat and businesslike. "We cannot afford to send you to college." The words hit me like a punch to the gut. I opened my mouth to respond, but nothing came out. My mother leaned forward, clasping her hands together. "Your sister Sophia needs ballet lessons, summer camps, private tutoring. She is only 15, and she has so much potential. We need to start saving for her future too. You understand, right?" I did not understand. I had worked my tail off for 4 years. Perfect attendance. Honor roll every semester. Volunteered at the community center. Captained the debate team. I had done everything they told me would matter, everything that would get me into college. But I got accepted. I managed to say, my voice cracking. I worked so hard for this. My father sighed, rubbing his temples like I was giving him a headache just by existing. "Life is not about what you want, Maxwell. It is about responsibility. We need you at the family cafe. The business needs help, and you are old enough to contribute." I glanced toward the hallway, where I could hear the faint sound of piano keys. Sophia was playing that grand piano they had bought her 3 months ago. $3,000. But there was no money for my education. "This is not fair," I said quietly. My mother stood up, smoothing her skirt. "Fair we raised you, fed you, kept a roof over your head. Now it is time for you to help this family. That is what family does." I wanted to scream. I wanted to throw that acceptance letter in their faces and walk out the door. But I was 18, broke, and had nowhere to go. So I just stood there, feeling my dreams crumble into dust. The next morning, I started working at the family cafe. The place was a small operation downtown, tucked between a dry cleaner and a bookstore. 20 tables, beige walls decorated with generic coffee-themed art, and the constant smell of espresso and butter from the pastries we baked every morning. My alarm went off at 5:30 a.m. every single day. I would drag myself out of bed, throw on jeans and the cafe shirt my mother had ordered for me, and drive through the dark streets to open up. Unlocking the front door, turning on the lights, firing up the espresso machine, mixing dough for croissants and muffins, brewing the first pots of coffee, wiping down tables, setting out napkins and sugar packets. All before the first customer walked in at 7 a.m. My friends were posting pictures on social media from college orientation. Dorm rooms decorated with posters and string lights, new roommates, campus tours, football games, parties, everything I should have been experiencing. Instead, I was pulling shots of espresso for strangers and scraping burnt muffins off baking sheets. My father worked the register, barely speaking to me except to bark orders. My mother handled inventory and bookkeeping from a tiny office in the back. I did everything else. And at night after we closed at 8 p.m., after I had mopped the floors and cleaned the espresso machine and restocked the pastry case for the next morning, I would go home and collapse into bed. Sometimes I tried to teach myself things online. Free courses on business management, marketing, basic coding. But I was so exhausted that I could barely keep my eyes open. And none of it came with a degree anyway. So what was the point? My parents never asked how I was doing. They never asked if I was okay. They only cared about whether the inventory was finished or if I had remembered to clean the milk steamer. Meanwhile, Sophia was thriving. She came home one afternoon with a brand new MacBook Pro for her school projects, $1,600. The next month, my parents announced she would be going on a summer trip to Europe with her dance troupe. Paris, London, Rome, 5 weeks, $8,000. I was in the kitchen when I heard them talking about it, excitement bubbling in their voices. I felt sick. I excused myself and went to my room, closed the door, and stared at the ceiling. I had not left the state in 3 years. I had not taken a single day off from the cafe in 3 years. But Sophia got Europe. A few weeks later, I overheard another conversation. It was late at night, and I had come downstairs to get water. My parents were in the living room, voices low but audible. "We need to start putting more aside," my mother said. "At least $150,000 for Sophia's wedding someday. She deserves the best." "Do not worry," my father replied. "Maxwell will keep the cafe running. He is good at it. We can save what we need." I stood frozen in the hallway glass of water, halfway to my lips. They were not just using me for the present. They were planning to use me indefinitely. I was not their son. I was their employee, their cash cow, their backup plan. I went back upstairs, set the glass on my nightstand, and lay down in the dark. I felt invisible, worthless, like I did not matter at all. But somewhere in that darkness, a tiny spark of defiance flickered to life. I would prove them wrong someday. I had to. 3 years crawled by. I turned 21, still working at that cafe, still living at home, still feeling like a ghost in my own family. But something had changed inside me. I stopped waiting for my parents to see me. I stopped hoping they would apologize or suddenly realize how badly they had treated me. Instead, I started planning my escape. At night, after closing the cafe, I taught myself everything I could. YouTube videos on marketing strategies, free online courses on graphic design, tutorials on coding and website development. I was exhausted running on 4 or 5 hours of sleep, but I kept going. I started taking on small freelance projects, designing logos for local businesses, building simple websites for people who needed an online presence. $20 here, $50 there. It was not much, but it was mine. I opened a bank account that my parents did not know about. Every dollar I earned from freelancing went straight into that account. I lived like a monk, spending nothing, saving everything. I had a plan. I just needed time. Meanwhile, Sophia graduated high school and got accepted into a prestigious art school across the country. My parents threw a celebration party. Aunts, uncles, cousins, family, friends. Everyone gathered in our backyard under string lights, toasting to Sophia's bright future. I spent the entire evening in the kitchen, refilling drinks, cutting cake, washing dishes. Not a single person toasted to me. Not one. Sophia was 18 now, full of dreams and excitement, completely unaware of how different our lives had been. I did not blame her. She was just a kid, living the life our parents gave her. But it still hurt. By the time I turned 22, I had saved enough. Not a fortune, but enough to rent a small studio apartment 30 minutes away. Enough to take the leap. One morning, I walked into the cafe before opening, found my parents in the office, and told them I was leaving. My father's face turned red. "You are abandoning your family." My mother started crying. "After everything we did for you, how can you be so ungrateful?" I stayed calm. I had practiced this moment in my head 1,000 times. "You did not do anything for me. You used me. For 4 years I worked here while you spent money on Sophia's piano, and trips, and tutors. I am done." My father stood up, slamming his hand on the desk. "If you walk out that door, do not come back." "Fine," I said, and I walked out. I packed my things that afternoon, loaded them into my beat-up car, and drove to my new apartment. It was tiny, 1 room with a bathroom and a kitchenette. But it was mine. For the first time in my life, I was free. My parents sent angry text messages for weeks, demanding I come back, calling me selfish and disrespectful. I blocked their numbers eventually. I needed space to breathe, to build something for myself without their voices in my head. I threw myself into freelance work. I took every project I could find, working 12-hour days, building a portfolio, making connections. After a year, a small marketing agency noticed my work and hired me full-time. I was good at what I did. Creative, detail-oriented, hungry to succeed. Within 6 months, I was promoted. Within a year, I was leading projects. 3 years after leaving the CAFO, I started my own digital marketing firm. It was terrifying and exhilarating all at once. But I had learned how to hustle, how to survive on nothing, how to make something out of scraps. Those years at the cafe had taught me resilience, even if they had also taught me pain. By the time I turned 26, my business was thriving. I had a team of 5 people, steady clients, and a reputation for delivering results. I had built a life I was proud of, a life my parents had told me I could never have. I had not spoken to them in 4 years. I figured I never would again. Then on a Friday afternoon in late spring, my phone rang. Unknown number, but the area code was from my hometown. I hesitated, staring at the screen. Part of me wanted to ignore it, but curiosity won. I answered. "Maxwell, sweetheart, it is your mother." Her voice was bright and cheerful, dripping with fake warmth. I almost hung up right there. "Hi, Mom," I said cautiously. "Oh, honey, it has been so long. How are you? We have missed you so much." I did not respond. I knew this act. I had seen it before when she wanted something. "Listen, I have wonderful news," she continued, her voice rising with excitement. "Your sister Sophia is engaged. Can you believe it? Our little girl is getting married." I felt a strange mix of emotions. I had not spoken to Sophia in years either, but I did not hate her. She had been a kid when all this happened. "Congratulations," I said. "I am happy for her." "We want you to be part of this special day," my mother said. "Why do not you come over for dinner this weekend? We can all celebrate together, as a family." Every instinct screamed at me to say no, but some small, foolish part of me wondered if maybe, just maybe, they had changed. If maybe this was their way of reaching out, of trying to rebuild what we had lost. "Okay," I said. "I will come Saturday evening." "Wonderful. See you at 6. She hung up before I could change my mind. Saturday came too fast. I drove to my childhood home with my stomach in knots. The house looked the same. Same beige siding, same wooden porch, same garden my mother had always been so proud of. I parked in the driveway, took a deep breath, and knocked on the front door. My mother answered, beaming. She pulled me into a hug that felt hollow and rehearsed. My father shook my hand, stiff and formal. Sophia was in the living room with a man I assumed was her fiancé. She looked so grown up now, 22 years old, confident and radiant. "Maxwell," she said, standing up to hug me. "It is so good to see you." "You too," I said, and I meant it. Her fiancé Daniel was a nice guy. An accountant, polite and friendly, clearly head over heels for Sophia. We sat down to dinner, and for a while everything felt almost normal. My parents asked about my business, complimented my success, acted like they were proud. Sophia and Daniel talked about their wedding plans. The venue was at a luxury resort 2 hours north. 200 guests, live band, designer dress. It all sounded extravagant. After dinner, Sophia and Daniel excused themselves to take a walk outside. The moment the door closed behind them, the atmosphere in the room shifted. My father cleared his throat. My mother folded her hands on the table, her smile fading into something harder. "Maxwell." My father said, his voice taking on that familiar businesslike tone. "We need to discuss something important." Here it comes, I thought. "Sophia's wedding is going to cost about $135,000, my mother said calmly. I blinked. "That is a lot, but congratulations, I guess." My father leaned forward. "We expect you to contribute." I laughed. Actually laughed. It was so absurd that I could not help it. "Contribute? How much are you thinking?" My mother did not blink. "All of it. $135,000. The laughter died in my throat. "What?" "You heard us," my father said. "We raised you. We fed you. We gave you a job when you needed one. You owe us." I stared at the waiting for the punchline that never came. They were serious. Dead serious. "Sophia is our princess," my mother added, her voice soft but firm. "She deserves the best wedding money can buy. And you are her brother. Family helps family." I stood up so fast my chair scraped loudly against the floor. "You refused to pay a single dollar for my education. You made me work at your cafe for 4 years, while you spent tens of thousands on Sophia's dance lessons and trips and tutors. And now you expect me to hand over $135,000 for a wedding." My mother's face hardened. "That was different. We needed you at the cafe." "No," I said, my voice shaking with anger. "You used me. You treated me like hired help instead of your son. And now you think you can just call me up after 4 years of silence and demand more than $100,000. Are you out of your minds?" My father stood up, his face red. "Do not be selfish, Maxwell. This is about your sister." "My answer is no," I said firmly. "I will not give you a single cent." The front door opened, and Sophia and Daniel walked back in, laughing about something. They stopped when they saw us, their smiles fading. "What is going on?" Sophia asked nervously. "Your brother," my mother said, her voice dripping with disdain, "refuses to help with your wedding." Sophia looked at me confused. "Maxwell." "Sophia," I said, keeping my voice as calm as I could. "They just asked me to pay for your entire wedding. $135,000. Did you know about this?" Her eyes went wide. "What, no? I did not know they were going to ask you that." "Well, they did," I said. And I said no. Tears filled her eyes. "You do not love me." "I love you, Sophia." I said, my heart breaking. "But this is not about you. This is about them. They are manipulating both of us. They used me for years, and now they want to use me again. I cannot do it any more." I grabbed my jacket from the back of the chair and headed for the door. My parents were shouting behind me, calling me ungrateful and selfish and heartless. I did not look back. I just walked out, got in my car, and drove away. The next few weeks were brutal. My parents blew up my phone with text messages, each one angrier than the last. When I stopped responding, they started calling relatives. Aunts, uncles, cousins I had not spoken to in years. They all called me, lecturing me about family obligations, telling me I was selfish and cruel for refusing to help my sister. I blocked most of the numbers. I was done explaining myself. Then one evening I got a long text from Sophia. It started angry. How could I do this to her? Did I really hate her that much? But as I kept reading, the tone shifted. She wrote about memories from our childhood, how she had always looked up to me, how she never understood why I left. And then, at the very end, she wrote something that surprised me. Maybe you are right. Maybe they did treat you differently. I did not want to see it before, because it was easier not to. I am sorry, Maxwell. I am sorry I did not notice. I am sorry I did not stand up for you. I stared at those words for a long time. Then I texted her back. I do not blame you, Sophia. You were just a kid, but I cannot enable their behavior anymore. I hope you understand. She responded a few minutes later. I do. And for what it is worth, Daniel and I are planning a smaller wedding now. Something we can actually afford. I do not need all that fancy stuff. I just want to marry him. I smiled at my phone. That sounds perfect. I am happy for you. My parents tried one last desperate move. They hired a lawyer hoping to find some legal way to force me to pay. The lawyer told them there was no legal ground for their demand. I did not owe them anything. They dropped it after that, but they never stopped blaming me. I heard through the grapevine that they had to downsize the wedding significantly. Smaller venue, fewer guests, no live band. They told everyone who would listen that it was my fault that I had ruined Sophia's special day. I did not care anymore. I was done seeking their approval, done hoping they would see me as more than a paycheck. The months that followed were hard in a different way. I felt guilty even though I knew I had done the right thing. I felt the weight of their anger and disappointment even from a distance. So I started going to therapy. I needed to process everything. The childhood I had lost, the resentment I carried, the anger that still burned in my chest. My therapist helped me understand something crucial. She said, "You cannot set yourself on fire to keep others warm." Those words stuck with me. I had spent so many years sacrificing my own dreams, my own happiness to meet their expectations, and it had never been enough. It never would have been. I started reconnecting with old friends from high school people I'd lost touch with during those years at the cafe. I built a social life. I went to dinners and game nights and concerts. I remembered what it felt like to laugh without guilt weighing me down. And then I met Harper. She was a graphic designer working on a project for one of my clients. We got coffee to discuss the campaign, and something just clicked. She was kind, funny, talented, and she treated me like I mattered. Not because of what I could do for her, but just because I was me. We started dating a few months later. Harper's family welcomed me with open arms. Her parents invited me to Sunday dinners, asked about my work, laughed at my jokes. They treated me with warmth and respect, the way I had always imagined family should be. It was bittersweet realizing what I had been missing my whole life. But it was also healing. Now I'm 28 years old. My business is doing better than I ever imagined. I have a life I built from scratch filled with people who genuinely care about me. I still think about my parents sometimes. I wonder if they ever regret how they treated me. If they ever look back and realize they pushed their own son away. But I do not lose sleep over it anymore. Sophia and I text every now and then. Our relationship is not what it used to be, but there is a foundation of honesty now that was never there before. She got married last fall. Small ceremony at a local garden. 50 guests. Sophia looked beautiful, and Daniel looked at her like she hung the moon. I was not invited, but she sent me pictures afterward. I sent her a card and a small gift. It felt like enough. My parents never apologized. I do not think they ever will. They still believe they were right that I owed them that I failed them somehow. But I have made peace with that. Their inability to see their mistakes is not my burden to carry anymore. I learned something important through all of this. You do not owe your family your entire life just because they raised you. Love should not come with invoices and demands. Real love does not keep a tally of debts owed. And sometimes the healthiest thing you can do is walk away from people who only see you as a means to an end. I am not bitter. I am just free. Free to build the life I want, surrounded by people who value me for who I am, not what I can give them. And honestly, that freedom is worth more than anything they could have ever offered me. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is walk away. And in that walking away, you find yourself, was it worth it every single step? So here is my question for you. Have you ever had to set boundaries with family, even when it felt impossible? Have you ever walked away from people you loved because staying was destroying you? Drop your story in the comments. I would love to hear how you found your own freedom. And if this story resonated with you, please hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and share this video with someone who might need to hear it. Your support means everything. Thank you for listening, and I hope you find the courage to choose yourself when you need to. Take care of yourselves out there. You deserve it.